Y'all's the hate on all of my moves, but now niggas on it. Y'all used to bait me on me and my views, but now niggas on it. I used to tell them I'ma have me a show, but now niggas on it. Her homies on it. Your homies on it. Y'all's the hate on all of my moves, but now niggas on it. Y'all used to debate me on me and my views, but now niggas on it. I used to tell them I'ma have me a show, but now niggas on it. Her homies on it. Your homies on it. Realest Podcast.
TRP Nation, we are here today with an extremely special guest as we collectively embark on the home stretch of an upcoming presidential showdown. And we are here with someone who can speak to all of the issues that people should be aware of in this country at large. She is someone who has dedicated her life to civics and civil rights. She has purposefully made every decision with one goal in mind, protecting the civil liberties of those in underrepresented communities. As a public defender, civil rights attorney, state representative, and now United States Congresswoman, she has dedicated her life to public service with the goal of serving justice and equality for all. Hailing from the great state of Texas, representing the 30th District, please help us welcome political rock star, United States Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Thanks so much for having me. It's always weird when somebody like reading about you. You like, who you reading about? Who you talking about?
That's you. You did all of that.
Yeah, I know. It's still weird.
And doing my research, I actually found out that we share a birthday, March 29th.
Oh my gosh, Aries Nation.
Yeah.
Yes, birthday twin. I always love finding birthday twins. Wait a minute, what is all this hate that's stemming from over here? Keep that over there.
People that we know, Ron. It's
Yeah.
mad people who birthdays.
It's a popular
March 29th.
birthday.
I don't know what
Oh,
that's
really?
Yeah.
I wonder what was happening 9 months before March. I need to ask my parents, what was y'all up to?
I also saw that you were born in St. Louis. Is that correct?
Yes.
How did you end up in the great state of Texas?
You keep calling it the great state.
Yeah, really. It sounds like you trying to run for something.
I'm thinking about moving to Texas.
It's not feeling so great right now.
Oh, wow.
But it is home. It is home. So I ended up going to law school down in Texas.
Got it.
And so, today is Father's Day, so let me give a big shout out to my daddy. I'm a preacher's kid.
Gotcha.
And so growing up, I used to go to the National Baptist conventions. And so I sang in the choir and all that kind of stuff. And I remember they took us to Houston one year. And I was like, I want to live here one day.
Houston's very black.
Yes, it is. And it was a lot different than Missouri, honey.
Yeah.
And so I was very excited to be in Houston. And ultimately, I got a chance to go to law school down in Houston. So I ended up getting my dream. And then once I was there, it's like Texas sucks you in.
Where'd you get your degree at?
I graduated from University of Houston Law Center. But I started at, I
Went to
am a
Rhodes
Coug.
originally, right? For your undergrad?
Yes, for undergrad, I went to Rhodes. And I actually did my first year of law school at Thurgood Marshall. So I went to Texas Southern as well.
Oh, wow.
Fine Slim and Jim. Clyde Drexel was 44 in college. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. What first attracted you to law as a discipline, and what was like your North Star that, guided your career path from public defender, criminal attorney, civil rights attorney to now what you're doing as far as, being in Congress?
Yeah, I don't know that I ever was drawn to law, just like I'm not drawn to politics even today. So I actually was the victim of a couple of hate crimes when I was on campus at Rhodes.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry to hear that.
Rhodes is a small liberal arts school in North Memphis, y'all. Like North.
Yeah,
Like,
you don't get much blacker than that.
It's very black, but the campus is its own little bubble. And there were only 18 black students in my class.
Yeah.
There were maybe less than 50 black students as a whole in the entire student body. And so someone decided that they were going to key the N-word onto various cars. They put hate mail in our campus mailboxes, calling us all kinds of stuff. And even coming out of St. Louis, Missouri, I had not had those types of experiences.
Right.
And there was a black female lawyer. They decided that they were going to bring in the Cochran firm to try to help figure out what happened. And this black female lawyer graduated from the University of Houston School of Law.
Yeah.
And they never figured out exactly what happened, but she became my shero. And it was probably one of the only times that I really felt super confused and lost and felt as if my race itself had been weaponized against me. Like, I had heard the stories. I knew the history. But I was probably one of those people that felt like we were in a post-racial world as well, you know? And so it really kind of shook me and made me say, what am I doing with my life? So I had that incident along with the fact that I had done a musical on campus, Little Shop of Horrors. And the mock trial coach recruited me to mock trial. I became a national All-American. He said, hey, you should just go ahead and apply to law school. I was like, I'm going to be a CPA. He's like, you've got too much personality. You need to apply to law school. I applied to law school, got a full ride with a stipend, and decided I would quit if I didn't like it.
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So God has to yell at me.
Yeah.
That's what happened.
What was like your first experience in law where you were kind of like, I'm going to actually make a career of this? Like once you got into the actual field of doing it, and you're like, I could do this and do it at a high level.
I don't know if I ever felt that, but I really like being in the courtroom. I love trying cases. Like I'm not a kind of paper pushing lawyer. I mean, I love to try a good case. I love to be able to talk to juries, pick juries, convince them to see things my way. I will say that there was definitely a catalyst in my legal career that took me into politics for sure. And that catalyst came with a young, and I've got so many experiences that kind of continually drive me, but the initial catalyst was a 17-year-old student. He had stolen candy out of the concession stand at his high school. And the lawyers that had him before me pled him guilty to the felony of burglary of a building.
Oh, wow.
And put him on probation. It was less than $20 worth of candy. And because the law said if you just break into a building,
right,
doesn't matter if you end up getting anything, doesn't matter the amount, it's a felony.
And this was in that state?
This was in Texas.
Yeah.
It was in East Texas. So in Dallas, it would never happen this way. Like the prosecutor would be smarter about it.
Yeah.
So I get the kid on a probation revocation. And I'm like, who put this kid on probation? And mind you, Texas is one of 5 states that says at 17, you're an adult only for criminal justice purposes, not for anything else. Right. And so here it is. His violations were all what we consider to be technical, right?
Yeah.
Like he didn't have dirty ways. He didn't pick up new cases. But because he was indigent and his mama was working every day, she didn't have time to take off work, go get him from school, take him to a PO. So he hadn't reported to his PO.
Oh, wow.
And the judge gave him the maximum sentence. And I just thought...
What was the maximum sentence?
2 years. And I thought, and it was day for day. There's no
good
paroling.
time, none of that.
Yeah, there's no parole on what we call a state jail felony in Texas. And so I was like, how does this make sense? Like, how does this make sense? Like, how is this helping our society? Like, this is hurting our society because when he gets out, now he's a felon. And granted, nowadays, being a felon is a cool thing, I guess. I guess. Anyway, whole other issue. But, like, I was just like, no one will ever believe this kid because when it shows up on your record, it just says burglary of a building. Right. Yeah. It doesn't say...
There's no context or anything.
There's no context. Like, you just have a conviction. And you don't have, like, the details. And I'm like, this means he won't be able to get federal aid to go to school. This means that he may have problems with getting housing. This means that, like, the job, like, yeah. And it's all because he did what I would consider to be a very kid thing. Right. Not necessarily, like, saying it's okay to go out and steal anything. But it's correct. Yeah. Absolutely. With maximum penalty attached to it. Yeah.
That's disappointing. And doing my research to that point, you actually kind of led me to where I was going. I've come to understand the essence of the woman that you are and know that like you inherently care for people in a very genuine way that you honestly don't see from a lot of people in political spaces. Where do those levels of like empathy and emotional intelligence come from that kind of guides your path through all these different career paths you've been in?
Yeah, I think talking about that situation that happened when I was in college, it really allowed me to be in a space that I never really sat in, which is, number one, my blackness. And number two, just having a compassion and a heart for people that are experiencing struggles that really aren't their fault, right? Like, I had people attack me, and it wasn't my fault at all. And knowing that what we should have out of our lawyers, what we should have out of our politicians is advocates for those that literally have been attacked for no reason. Right. And I see the political system, the criminal justice system, so many of our systems in general as attacking the most vulnerable amongst us. And it's because the people that are in position have complete disregard for the people that they're supposed to be serving.
Right.
And, I personally have this opinion that people aren't engaged in politics or don't like politicians right now because they don't feel as if they care.
Yeah.
They're like, it doesn't matter which party you come from. I don't think you care about me, and I don't think you're listening to me. And, I could have sat back and said, I'm going to keep letting whoever run for office. Or I could say, I know that I have the skill set along with the heart to do this work.
Right.
And as I try to encourage other people to run for office, it's usually the people that have hearts that are like, I don't want no parts of that.
Yeah.
Like, that is not that life.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to get the good people back into politics.
Yeah. Councilman Curtis Jones Jr., who represents the 4th District here in Philadelphia, he always says, like, if you love people and you care about people, it's the easiest job you'll ever do. You'll never have a day of work. But if you don't, it's going to be work every single day.
I don't know if it's easy. I don't know. I don't know that I'll say that part. Because politics is taking on just a completely different flavor now, right?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that
it's another level of realness to it now.
It is, but it's also so insidious because, so long as people that look like me or thought like me weren't sitting at the table, everything was all good.
Yeah.
They could play nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now that you have like a Jasmine Crockett and others like me, then it's a matter of, we get death threats. Like, I've represented murderers.
Mm-hmm.
And ain't get death threats,
right?
Like, I've dealt with, people that were in gangs from being in prison that don't like black people, right? Like, I've dealt with all those guys and didn't have to worry about death threats. And now that I'm in politics, I have to endure that. Like, the nature and the game of politics has changed,
right?
Because there are those that are fearful of the power really being returned to the people.
Right.
And that is the struggle that we're experiencing right now, is that there are those that don't want the people to have the power. They want to continue to act like they're just rulers over us and snatch our freedoms and snatch our liberties and tell us that we should be okay with losing everything that our ancestors fought for.
Right. You've been able to build a lot of social capital, by being very front facing, willing to confront certain issues, have tough conversations, media outlets like MSNBC, your regular guest, The Breakfast Club, The View, and also embracing like social media. What inspired you to be so bold and step out and call out certain GOP narratives, hypocrisies, and stuff like that as a freshman Congresswoman?
Yeah, so I don't do this job because I'm getting paid like that. And granted, I don't want to diminish the pay because I know that a lot of people don't make what we make. But, I was making a little bit more money.
I would imagine in private practice.
Yeah. In fact, one of my civil rights cases that I worked on for 7 years, they told me, you can't have any of the money. And I was like, if we collect on this, I'm quitting, just FYI. But it went to jury about 2 months into my tenure, and I stayed away because I'm not allowed to practice law anymore. Yeah. So I didn't go to the trial, and my co-counsel handled it, and the jury awarded $22 million. Ooh. Peace out. But, I will say, I say all that to say that I don't do this for any other reason than to represent. And so I'm fearless in my representation. I think when people are so enamored with their titles or so enamored with their status, then that's when you find them being a little bit more timid. But if I can't do this the way that I envision it, then I think that it's the right of the people to say, she not repping for us, so we're going to kick her out. I think that is, I always make it clear that the seat belongs to the people. Right. And I can say that my district is about this life. Thank goodness. They see the world the way that I do. Right. I had the best numbers of any challenged incumbent, Democrat or Republican, that was challenged and running for re-election during my primary. So, so far, so good. My report card is all right. Now, that was before B6. So, Who knows? But my constituents are getting B6 shirts, so I think they good.
Yeah. And you have your I Said What I Said series of that you post on Instagram where you like, in today's action of me kicking somebody's ass in session, like you're very, very counter to what we historically see from from people in political spaces. Very
Especially
bold.
Congress.
Yeah.
Shifting gears toward the presidential election, because I think that's probably the main reason why we're here. What do you feel are the most important and impactful issues that people need to be aware of with this pending showdown coming in November?
Yeah, I think that, it's tough for everyone to have the unique relationship that I get to have, the privilege of having with the president and the vice president. Like, the average person doesn't get to go and have dinner with them or talk to them in the Oval Office and that kind of stuff. So I definitely am like, this is my team. Like, this is who I ride with.
Right.
And I think what we're seeing right now is that people are frustrated. The aftermath of COVID is nothing nice. And trying to convince people that the numbers say that they should feel good is, I don't think, the right thing to do. Right. The numbers are what they are. And they are accurate, right? But when people are like, it was hyperinflation, and not understanding that, like, we always experience inflation. Mm-hmm. And I tell people, I wish I could go back to gas being 70-something cents a gallon, like when I first started driving. But, like, it ain't going back there, right? But, like, we know that while costs have gone up, so has income, right? And it's the income of the middle class that this administration has really focused in on. But we've got to make sure that people understand that we know that everything's not perfect.
Exactly.
Like, we get that we've got the data on our side to suggest that we are recovering in a very strong way. But that doesn't mean that we are feeling good. It doesn't mean that the cost of food is still not hurting us. It doesn't mean that housing is still where we need it to be. Like, people are still saying we can't afford a house, right? And I want people to understand that, like, there's one team that's listening, and it's another team that literally has no agenda. Like, if you literally just say, what is your agenda? No one can list anything
correct
that they are on other than retribution, right? Like, you hear it all the time. I am your retribution. That's not an agenda, okay?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
that's, and who is your?
Right.
Who is your retribution?
Yeah, who's in
right?
that your?
Yeah, who's in that your is the question. And so I do want people to know that this team has focused so much on working that they really haven't gotten the information out, right? Like, to explain that, like, that child tax credit that you got, which people may or may not have known that that's exactly what it was, but they were getting an extra $300 a child, and literally it cut Black poverty by 50%. And somebody asked me earlier today, they said, what exactly does that mean? Right? Mm-hmm. That means that, like, the poverty level in this country is about $15,000.
Right.
So if you make at or below $15,000, you are considered to be in poverty.
Right.
Well, this $300 per child was absolutely helping to lift people out of poverty, get them out of that $15,000, and get them some more money so that they could make sure that there is more food on the table and things like that.
Yeah. And
that's something that this administration didn't decide that they needed to put, their name on a check to do. They just did it. And honestly, I feel like this administration is being hurt by the fact that instead of trying to grandize
or propaganda,
about the things that they've done, they just decided we got to get in and do the work. And so it's really important that we tell the stories. We talk about, I was just telling y'all beforehand that I was talking to my sorority sisters yesterday, and you're never ever supposed to ask, like, a question you don't know the answer to as a lawyer, but I did it. And so it's a room of probably 1,000 women, and I know that to be a Delta you got to go to college,
right?
So I'm like, how many of y'all took out student loans? Well, almost the entire room at some point in time is taking out student loans. Mm-hmm. But I did not know how many, if any, in that room had their student loans forgiven, right? And so I'm like, all right, I don't know the answer to this question. So hoping this goes well.
Stepping out on faith.
Right? Because I'm like, I know the work that has been done.
Yeah.
But I don't know, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was like, how many of y'all have had your student loans forgiven? It was insane how many people in that one room I was like, well, I'm glad for y'all because it ain't happened for me. But so I can't tell you my personal story, but I was like trying to connect the dots, right? Like I had somebody come up and say, I've had $250,000 taken off my back in student loans.
That's insane.
It's absolutely insane.
Why
like,
is it happening for some and not for others? What is the?
Is it industry? It's a lot of things. It's a lot of red tape. It's like industry specific. Where like the segmentation of we work 10 years in service.
Yeah. So it depends on the industry that you're in. Okay. So you've got the public kind of area sector. So like any of the public servants. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've got your firefighters, your teachers, you've got those.
Yeah, I know people that work as like clinicians and stuff like that. Yep. That work for have like masters of human services and stuff like that. Yep. They got $160,000 of debt. It's been forgiven.
Yeah.
Like because they've been 10 years in service now in that particular industry, stuff like that.
And part of what we were enduring too is in the midst of COVID, it was like you don't have to pay your student loan payments. Like, we'll freeze them for you. But this administration decided they would give credit for some of that as well. So instead of you having to do another 6 months past that, you didn't necessarily have to do that. Also, there were just some really bad loans out there as well. And they decided if you basically were the victim of a bad loan.
Like a predatory loan. Yeah.
Then you could also get... So there's a lot of different ways, but I will tell you, there's still people that are mad. Mm-hmm. They're like, well, we thought, because I was on the big list too, right? Yeah. Like mine would have, qualified. But
that goes to the propaganda part, where like the way it came off was like, oh, student loans just gonna be forgiven.
Well, yes and no, because they got stopped by the Supreme Court.
True.
So, like, even in spite of the Supreme Court doing what they doing, which we know that they're doing a lot of bad, this administration has said, we going to try to figure out a way around a way. And that's what I really want people to understand, is that you won't find perfection in any politician ever. And you won't agree with any politician ever. Yeah. I tell people all the time, I'm like, do you agree with your spouse all the time? And usually it's no. and I'm like, but you still love them and you stay with them, right? And so, but that's because you know the heart of your spouse, right? And you know that y'all have a common goal. And that's what this election is about, is like, whose heart is it that you can see, even if they aren't getting everything done, even if your husband failed to take out the trash like he was supposed to, right? Like, you still love him. You still ride with him because you know that, like, he didn't do that to upset you. Something must have came up, right? Yeah. That's where we are. So it's been over $170-something billion now at this point. I think $176 billion that's been relieved in student loan debt. But what does that mean? Black people specifically have been disproportionately burdened by student loan debt.
Absolutely.
So you pull that off their backs. Well, what does that mean? That means that now my debt to income ratio is doing a little bit better. Yeah. Maybe I can get a house.
Maybe I can get that G-Wagon I've been looking at.
That too. That too. But either way, right? Like, you want to get that off of your back. So
maybe I can pay this title loan off on this Buick LaCrosse.
You can do a lot of things. All the things.
I think this is probably going to be our final question, because I know we got to wrap. There has been a lot of talk, specifically this year, about voting for your own self-interest.
Yes.
And not being swayed by propaganda and misnomers and stuff like that. What does voting for your own self-interest look like to you as it pertains to Black America, who seem like they're more willing to vote Republican than ever?
I don't think that I believe it.
I think more than willing to vote Republican, I think willing to just
sit on their vote.
Y'all just go ahead over there.
That's
more the issue.
I think the issue, I agree. I think I don't see Black people being like, oh yeah, that's our orange Jesus too. Like, I don't see that happening. I don't.
Them blacks for Trump are wild though.
Yeah, but like, they be paid, most of them, and it's like you saw what happened at the Chick-fil-A. Like, it was
orange
like
Jesus was heavy television.
That's what they do. Chicken sandwiches, me 30 of them Jones.
Exactly. Like, I mean, it's a whole other thing.
Extra Chick-fil-A sauce.
Yeah.
Blacks love.
They was like they imported them Black people. Like, and I need people to look at like who and how you get treated when you ride with Trump and you Black, right? Because like the only person that got stuck in jail down in Georgia was the Black dude.
Yeah.
Everybody else got out.
Everybody else got everybody
else got out.
Checked out.
But the Black dude was stuck for a minute. Let me
holler at you in the back, player.
Exactly. Yeah. No. So I will say, I think that this is going to be about, am I going to stay at home, or am I going to go out and vote for the current administration? And I agree. What I tell people is that you need to be selfish. This needs to be about you. This isn't about the names that are at the top of the ticket. This is about who is going to do the most for me.
Right.
And so while we may not understand or know, like, why, like, I was frustrated to find out that some people didn't know why their student loans were relieved. Like, they had no idea why they were forgiven. So I was like, we gotta tell the people, or they don't understand when we start saying things like the infrastructure bill. Like, they like, what? Like, it's over 1,000 pages of legislation.
Right.
Like, so making it clear, like, you know, when we start talking about Flint, Michigan, there's a Flint, Michigan in every urban population that you can look for, right? Where they have poison.
Ours is Williamsport here in Pennsylvania.
See, but there's one everywhere, right? Where our water is poisoned.
There's a couple of them. It's a Darby over there, a little Kempton over there. There's a lot of them.
No, it is right. Our air, our soil, like. We have been the dumping grounds. People of color have been the dumping grounds for these nasty corporations that just feel like, oh, we can just go pollute and kill these people because nobody's going to care. This administration has made sure that they could right that wrong. Like, environmental injustice is a real thing. I've delivered millions of dollars to my constituents in these areas that have been impacted and literally killing us. And I can tell you right now that my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are like, you know what? We want to pull that money back. Y'all are doing too much. Right. So right now,
you care about people? Give us that bread back.
Right. Yeah, no, they're like, let's take it back. Or like, I talk about SNAP benefits because I'm so passionate about the fact that, like, there are people in this country that are already talking about food is too high. We only give you $6 a day to eat on SNAP benefits. So the idea that the Republicans are like, oh, yeah, this farm bill, we just going to go ahead and tank this because we want to cut $30 billion from SNAP. I'm sorry, but how much can you buy on $6 a day in the first place?
Right.
And they want to talk about being fiscally conservative. No, you're not being fiscally conservative. You're literally just being cruel. Like, that is the translation. You want to make sure that my seniors are struggling because you're like, maybe we should up the age of retirement. Maybe we shouldn't do Social Security. Like, they are trying to take everything. And the bottom line is this. They are telegraphing it. They are playing in your face. And so the idea that you're going to sit there and say, well, we don't know or we didn't know, you got all the information in front of you. I know that as politicians, we need to do our part and we need to get out and talk. But the reality is that you have more information than you've ever had available to you. Like, when we were talking about the people that fought so that we could get through Jim Crow, because, you know, some people think it was a great thing. But nevertheless, like, the people that were fighting, they didn't have the internet. Like, they didn't have access to this information. And they have come up with Project 2025, and they're sitting there like, you know what? So this whole diversity thing, we think that it's trash because now we're getting all these unqualified people, because to be diverse means to be unqualified to them. Like, at the end of the day, it's one side that I can never see myself siding with, and that's the side of racism. We know that they coddle, whether it's the Proud Boys or whether it's neo-Nazis. Like, we don't have nothing in common.
Right.
We don't. So we can't be on the same side. And so while I may not get everything that I want because government is clunky and it's big and it takes the entire team, we've got to have a House, we've got to have a Senate, and we also have to have the presidency. Like, it takes a trifecta, which we have seen work.
Right.
Pennsylvania. We've seen it work. In Michigan, right? Like, getting a trifecta can actually get you to where you are in a place of progress. Right. But right now, they are taking everything from us, and people still feel like, well, okay, well, I just don't like the fact that somebody old. They always been old. Yeah. I'm just saying. They always been old.
Last question, because I know you got to go. If the election were to happen today, do you have a prognosis or a prediction on how you think it would turn out?
I have no idea. I
think that's where a lot of people are.
I have no idea. I will tell you this, that Democrats have been overperforming in every election since the midterms. We overperformed in the midterms. They said we was going to get our asses kicked. It didn't happen that way. They were like, oh, the red wave is coming. It was a red dribble. They barely made it. And I think that, honestly, the best communicators of an agenda or lack thereof has been the Republicans themselves. Like, don't believe what I say, just like watch what they do. Like, they've been clowns. Like, people are calling the House a circus, right? So I'm like, this is just a microcosm of what it looks like to put Republicans in control. They have no control. Like, they are all over the place. And their agenda, if it doesn't involve rich old white men, then it ain't for you. Yeah. That's just the bottom line. Like, the only people that they're talking about putting money back into their pockets are rich folk. Like, that is a problem. Like, they want to talk about our debt, but we are only so much in debt because they decided, you know what, hey, rich people up there, don't
pay taxes, defer this, do what you want.
But then you want to get mad about things like student loan debt relief. Mm-hmm. Like, why are we mad that people that are struggling are just given an opportunity to breathe while we're sitting up there? I mean, it's weird to me that people feel like Trump is so relatable. I'm like, this dude was born with a silver spoon, and honestly, if he just would have let his money sit, he would have had more money today than he does. But I'm like, this guy's an idiot. They used to be like, oh, he's a great businessman. No, he's not. He's a fraud. Like, proven in court. Like, he's a fraud. He's a criminal. Like, and my deal is this. If you wouldn't have voted for Barack with this record, then you honestly should not even be considering voting for Trump. Because that then also plays into, like, a level of hate that we accept in this country. Yeah. You never would have voted for Barack Obama. You would have let them people tell you, you know what, we can't do a felon. We can't do that. That's an embarrassment. He is an embarrassment for us. Mm-hmm. This is a man that would not only be the president of the United States, but we're talking about the leader of the free world, who literally cannot go to different places because he is a convicted felon. Right. How are you going to lead the free world? Like, I mean, it's just, it's wild. Like, and my deal is, he ain't even smart enough to say, you know what, now that I'm on this side, let me come up with an agenda, right? This isn't a guy that said, you know what, I have a new agenda that is going to make sure that if you have been out of prison for X amount of years or your conviction is X amount of years old, that we will clean that up off your record. Or, you know what, we decided you can't get student loans. We decided that you can't get certain housing. We're going to change those laws. Right. This isn't even a guy who decided I'm going to be enlightened because he knows that his life is not going to be affected. And he still has no compassion for other people that have been engaged in this struggle for decades.
Right. It is crazy when you think about it, but Trump really a felon. Like,
he is. He is.
39 of them things. 34.
Just FaceTiming into the summit. Like, I can't come out there. Real quick, because I didn't notice. I noticed the shirt, but I didn't realize what it said till he dropped the thing. And then I read it, and I'm like, bleach, where have I seen it? I'm like, oh, yeah. How did that go so left?
That's just who Marjorie is. I mean, she's a whole fool. I mean, she is.
That's such a Texas thing to say.
She's a Texas,
she's a whole fool.
She is. She's a whole fool. I mean, you know, I literally dressed her down head to toe. So as the rules kind of were going out the window and Comer was confused, as y'all could see, because he's like, a what now? So all the things, as everything was happening, and I saw that he wasn't going to do what he was supposed to do, I literally looked over at her. She sits on the same row that I do, but on the Republican side, and from head to toe, I was like, and so I started at her head. My granny used to call people bad built. Y'all know how old black grannies are. They just say whatever, right? And so my granny used to always talk about people being bad built, so that's an ode to my granny. But yeah, I wrote it down. And then I tried to get his attention.
Those were some freestyle bars.
No, I wrote it down. Yeah, like
all
in that moment.
Verse.
Yeah, I was like, okay. And I actually asked my staff. I was like, "Do we still have the paper?" And we do. So we still have the paper where
that's
I
like
literally
a Basquiat at this point.
Yeah,
it's like a Warhol. Real sorry.
We super appreciate you joining us today. This has been amazing, very, very candid, open, honest conversation as only you can provide us. Representing the 30th district of Texas, Dallas to be exact. Dallas to be exact. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett.
Thank you so much.
We're gonna clap that up.